with the first pick in the NFL draft.
Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Betting Show. Adam and I are back again. We're back with our first betting show of the year. It is a draft special, so we'll have all the odds ready for Thursday, which is just around the corner. We've only got a few days to wait until we're at the actual draft. Adam, you getting excited for it yet?
Of course, we're getting excited for it. It's good. It's like, you know, the amount of stuff that we've done over the last God knows how many months when it comes to the draft. So it is exciting to finally get to the point where we're actually going to be doing something, and get to see where these guys go. So hopefully we can get some winners as well. I'm
guessing there's going to be some unusual odds crop up here because this is probably one of the most unpredictable drafts we've had in quite some time. Usually at this time of the draft process, we kind of have maybe the top 10 almost locked in our brains of like, yeah, we're pretty certain that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But after one, I'm really not sure what actually happens after that.
I think two myself. I know what you mean, but I do feel that Travis Hunter going to the Browns.
It was Abdul Carter. You know, it's one of them.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't be shocked if it was Abdul Carter. And also, to be honest, I wouldn't be shocked if it was Shedeur Sanders either. If they went for a quarterback, I think they'd be stupid, but I wouldn't be shocked if they'd done it because they need a quarterback, sort of thing. So it is something that you could see. I do feel like, given what the odds are now, for sort of like the first couple of picks, it feels like it would be very strange if it went against what the bookmakers have got, but it wouldn't be shocking because at least you could come out and go, oh, well, I understand why they've done it because they need this person, or they, you know, or vice versa. So I can understand why it might be different, but yeah, I mean, for me, I would be shocked if it didn't go Ward and then Hunter.
All right, let's take a look at some of the odds then. Adam, where do you want to go first?
So, I mean, we've done a lot of this on Bet365. I have to say, there's not that seems to be where most of the markets are. I did have a look on Sky Bet. I had a look on Paddy Power as well. You know, they're the sort of bookmakers that we do use the most here. And I felt like Bet365 was the way forward. So if we just sort of like start at the top with the sort of like the number placing of the picks, as I was saying, with the top two guys, the way that the odds have gone now, there's not a lot really to get involved with. I mean, I think we can safely say that Cam Ward is definitely going, given the fact that he's 100 to 1 on, is it?
1 to 100,
yeah. So there's not really a lot to be involved in that, but there are a couple of these in the top 10 that I thought were worth just sort of pointing out. Firstly, the number 7 pick, which is currently held by the New York Jets. It does feel very much that what makes the most sense would be Armand Membou at 8 to 5. Now, the reason I say that is that they've got rid of Morgan Moses. They desperately need a right tackle. Membou has spent a lot of his college time at right tackle. So them odds do feel very logical and a decent one to go for at 8 to 5. However, there has been a lot of chat about the fact that they really like Tyler Warren. And this kind of feels like the first spot that becomes the most logical spot to go for with Tyler Warren. Now, he is 14 to 5, which isn't an awful price, really, when you look at it. And I think that it's definitely one that you could take here, but it feels like it's one of them two to me.
Yeah, I suppose the trouble with this pick that I've got is a lot of the things I'm reading and hearing from this is they're all in on Membou, but if he's not there by the time they come to pick, they are open to trading down slightly and then possibly taking Warren slightly later. So I think, the likes of the Saints and maybe the 49ers that's not too far to move up or down. That's where you might get really, really difficult when you're picking who's going to go at 7 rather than what's this team going to pick. So it's a tough one, isn't it?
This is the problem with these picks, and this is kind of partly why I wanted to highlight a couple of these on this market, because it is a little bit difficult. You are relying on the fact that they're not going to trade, and you're relying on the fact that someone's not going to want to give them a fortune in order to come up. Now, personally, I think that you might see a couple of trades of teams trying to get up quite high. I know that, your New York Giants at number 3, there's a lot of talk about them trading down and potentially not taking Abdul Carter, because obviously, Abdul Carter, blue chip player, there's teams that might want to come up for him and pay a lot in order to be able to get him. Once you reach this point, I do feel it's a little bit like the main guys are gone. So I'm not 100% sure whether you will see a lot of trades when it comes to the sort of middle, once you get past them first few picks. However, and the reason I wanted to point this out is that he is 14-5 here. If you actually go into and we'll look at this market a lot more and later on, the exact position of first team pick, the Jets tight end is 11-4. And so I think that is a much safer bet for you to go for. And actually 14-5, 11-4, it's near enough the same sort of odds. So it's like you kind of don't really want to be going for this one, because this does bring in the added risk with the fact that they could trade. The Jets at tight end is 11-4 on Bet365. So I think that you'd be better off doing that. So then just quickly on a couple more of these, the number 9 pick is the New Orleans Saints. There's lots and lots of chat about them going quarterback because of the injury to Derek Carr. However, I think with a lot of these teams, they don't need to take quarterback this early. They really don't. And it feels like that there is a consensus in the NFL that these quarterbacks are not worthy of kind of trading up really high to go and get these guys. So there's no actual need for them to do it. Will Johnson, cornerback, is currently 12-1. And I really we've mocked him there loads of times before. We think that the corner position is something that they desperately need help in, because they don't have much depth there. And at 12-1, I think he is worth a punt, because when you look at the Saints for cornerback on, exact position, it's 9-1. And I feel like that if it's going to be a corner at this range, it is going to be Will Johnson. So it kind of feels like it is maybe worth going for that punt there on that one.
Yeah, what's the odds on, I don't know whether you got it in front of you, what's the odds on them taking an edge rusher? Because outside of corner, edge is what I've had mocked for them a lot prior to the, obviously, Derek Carr, shoulder injury, might need surgery, might get traded, cut, whatever it is that's going on with that drama. So
defensive lineman edge is 4-1.
Yeah, and at 10-1, Michael Williams might not be a bad bet, because that's the name that keeps coming up for them. And I know that everyone's got a different edge rusher ranking on all of them bar Abdul Carter, but he seems to be the name that's always cropping up with the Saints. So they've obviously done their homework on him. So again, it's not that too drastic of a drop from 12-1 to 10-1, is it, to have a little stab at that?
Yeah, well, 4-1. So Michael Williams 10-1, and like I say, it's 4-1 if you want to go for edge. So if you truly believe in Michael Williams going there, then it is worth a little stab on it at 10-1, like you say. So it's a good one to go for. And then the number 10 pick, the last one of these picks that we kind of like the look of, the Chicago Bears. We've spoken about this many times, where we feel that there's a strong chance that they're going to go running back here. And that if you actually look at them, if you look at the odds in the exact position for the first round pick, they are 9-4 favourite to take a running back. Now, that is probably weighted slightly towards Genty if he doesn't go to the Raiders. However, that feels that that's becoming kind of, that's what's going to happen there. As you've got Ben Johnson now as head coach. we've seen how the Lions offense has worked with 2 running backs. It feels like they took Gibbs, didn't they, early? It feels like this is something that he might be wanting for the Bears. I personally don't think Genty will be there. So the 2 guys for me to look at is Omarion Hampton at 16-1 and then Trayvon Henderson at 18-1. And I don't think that you need to sort of like, put loads on this. They're big odds, but I think it's like, I think these are the guys that potentially they're the most likely. They're the odds are very nice. And not only that, but the Bears are favoured to take a running back with their first pick anyway. So it does kind of feel a bit logical that might be where it ends up being. So yeah, I just think that they're decent sort of like long shot odds to have a look at.
Yeah, definitely. Last year, I scattered some bets last year on this market because I felt like Michael Penix there was no chance whatsoever that he was going to fall outside the top 10. I thought, he's a good enough talent. He's not going to. So I scattered some bets from sort of pick 7 to pick 10. I just had a few bets on there, and all the odds were sort of either, I think the shortest was 11-1 and the highest was sort of 18-1. So I got some really good odds in that sort of market of going, he's not dropping outside the top 10. If Shedeur Sanders doesn't go 2 or 3, do you think that there is a chance that someone like the Steelers or maybe even the Saints or whatever want to go above the Raiders? Because I know Shedeur's been on the Raiders sort of eye a little bit. Do you think there's some competition between some of those teams lower that might go, I'm going to go up to 10, 9 or something like that to go and get him? Who would be ideal to trade out? The Jets at 7 or potentially the Jags at 5, maybe if the top 4 picks don't go their way and they might want to move out of that. Do you see someone coming up for Shedeur and maybe it worth scattering some bets across sort of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 maybe?
I get the logic. My concern here is that what you were dealing with last year was a very good quarterback class, and I kind of felt like most people felt that. So even with the likes of Penix and Bo Nix as well, I know he didn't make it.
No one had Penix going in the top 10 ever in any of them mock drafts.
No, but it kind of, I think it's one of them things where it's almost like when you have what is considered a good quarterback class, I think that you're more willing to maybe take a punt on ones that are a little bit lower down and do that. I'm not sure that people will do that with this one. I feel like, I mean, I might be wrong on this, but I feel like with this class as a whole, it's very much that there's about 2 or 3 really top quality guys. And then it drops off dramatically. And I kind of feel like you're going to get a lot of people just go, it doesn't matter because I can take Jackson Dart later, or I can take someone else later.
The drop off between the top 2 quarterbacks in Ward and Sanders, to me, the drop off then to 3 is.
But not many people are saying that.
Well,
that's the problem.
Jackson
I agree with you. I agree from an NFL. From playing in the NFL point of view, I actually think Sanders is probably the one who is most likely to stick around. And because he's a very accurate, considered quarterback. Whereas when you look at the other ones, it's more about whether or not it's going to all fit together and work. So I do agree with you on that. But I think that the NFL, as in like all the teams in general, have just got a real downer on this quarterback class and just don't think that it's really that good apart from Cam Ward. And so they're just a little bit like, so why do I need to invest a load of picks into moving up to get a guy that we're not 100% sold on? And I know what you mean about the fact that a lot of people didn't have Penix in the top 10 and that maybe he was one of them where there wasn't as many NFL teams that were fans of him compared to what there was. But I just kind of get that feeling like when you've got that sort of like class in general, and you go, oh well, you know, Caleb Williams is amazing, Jaden Daniels really good, and you sort of like you look at it in that spot, and they're going 1, 2, 3, and they're going, oh, these quarterbacks are actually pretty decent. I just think it elevates everybody up a little bit, and so I'm not sure anyone's going to really sort of like spend to move up and take him, especially, and there are red flags with him. There really are, you
There's
know.
red flags with everyone, isn't there? But
There are, yeah, but that's kind of the point. Whereas I feel like with Penix, you could come out and go,
it was just injuries, wasn't it, with him?
yeah,
for me,
there are the red flags of that,
mobility
and there's a little bit of limitation in the run game compared to some of the others, but at the same time, he got them a really, really long way in the college championship sort of thing, and so I think that's probably enough as to why it probably won't happen for Sanders in that way.
Outside of talking about Sanders, I know you said that just quickly on this, that there's no one really other than the top 3 guys worth moving up for. If we're looking at 10, 9, 10, 8, 9, 10, would you see that feasible, that it wouldn't cost you a lot to move up if you were the Cowboys or someone like that, if you wanted a running back or a wide receiver, you might move up from 12 to 10, 9, 8, and maybe take one of those skill positions?
Yeah, I think that might be what you see with these trades. I think it might be little moves, almost moving up, say, like 2 spots, and yet not really giving a lot in order to be able to do it. Almost like, say, like you switch your thirds and your fourths or something like that, and it kind of feels like for just to move up a couple of picks, just to make sure you get your guy, so you can jump ahead of that next team. So there are people out there like it. That I think Tyler Warren, as you were saying about sprinkling the bets over sort of like pick 7, 8, 9, 10, that sort of thing. I think Tyler Warren is one that you could see that happen with. A team like the Colts might have to move up if they really want Tyler Warren, sort of thing. But again, if they don't mind, then they'll probably get Colston Loveland. So this is the point of a lot of them. It kind of feels like Tyler Warren is being sort of like portrayed as this amazing tight end, but actually the number 2 guy is not far away and arguably ahead of him in some people's minds. So again, it kind of feels a little bit like there's a few special players, but there's not many. And so because of that, I don't know how many will do it, but I think what you'll see little trade ups just to make sure that you get the guy you want. Say like just quickly, say like the Seahawks. The Seahawks are at 18. They need an O-line guy. That's, you know, kind of what whether it be guard or tackle, whatever, but they need someone on the O-line. But the Bengals are in front of them, and you could argue the O-line for the Bengals as well. So you could see them just maybe jumping up ahead, like trading with the Cardinals at 16, just to get ahead of them. They're the sort of trades I think you're going to see.
Yeah. So where do you want to go next, Adam? After the top 10 picks.
After that, I quite like. So if you go into draft position, is it draft position? Is that what we want? It is draft position. Okay, so there's a few guys. These aren't particularly big odds, but there's just a few guys on the over-unders that I quite like the look of. First one being Jackson Dart. So if you go onto him, the over-under line for him is currently set at 24.5. He's not going to the draft anymore. It feels like we know that it's not happening. For him, I think there are chances that a team will trade back into the first in order to take him, but I think you're going to be looking at the very back of the first, if not in the second, personally, for him. So over 24.5 for Jackson Dart. I think, it's you're not going to get fantastic odds on these sort of ones, but 6 to 5, I'm more than happy to take for him. I think that's going to happen. Matthew Golden is the next one. I think both of us kind of feel like the tape doesn't represent the speed that he gave off. There is a little bit more risk in this one because I do think the Dallas Cowboys are going to take a tight end. and they might do something stupid and take Matthew Golden instead of McMillan. So, it could happen. But if it doesn't, if that one doesn't happen, I think he goes over 17.5 at 6-5 again. For me, I think you have to think of it as the over. I just can't. I can't see it myself where it goes against. Tyler Warren, he is currently 7-4. Yeah, 7-4 for under 9.5. To me, I think the Jets. I think there's a strong chance that the Jets could go for him, and this is a bigger price compared to a lot of the others. So I like the price more than anything else. I do think that the Jets could go for him, and I do think a team could trade up for him as well. So at 7,
I think the Jets don't go for him. Do you see him getting past? Oh no, I was thinking it's 0.5. I was going to say, does he get past the Bears? But the Bears are 10, aren't they? So that,
that's the only issue with that one. But I do wonder if the Bears are there at 10, do the Colts trade up?
Mm-hmm.
To try and, because they know that the Bears will probably go that route. So you get in at 9, trade with the Saints. The Saints don't need to take at 9. So it's like, that could work. So at 7-4, I quite like the price for Tyler Warren there at 7-4. It's a little bit bigger than the others, so it's not too bad. But yeah, I mean, there wasn't really anyone else that I kind of liked at the prices. It's difficult on this market because it is quite like, they're 50-50, aren't they, market? So you're not going to get big prices, but 7-4 for the under seems quite nice on Tyler Warren. And I was just trying to make sure that they were like odds against as well. So it was like just so that you could get a little bit of money there. But yeah, they were the 3 that I kind of really liked on that one.
Where are we going next?
Running backs drafted in. Is it there? Running backs draft? Yeah, in the first round. The over. I quite like the over on it. It's not a massive price, but 8-5, I think it's a decent price. We spoke about the Bears, where we feel like there's a chance that they take a running back, and
Raiders, Bears, Broncos, and then
Chargers,
later on in the draft,
possibly
Chargers, and then we also quite like the Commanders, and I quite like the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Maybe having a stab if someone like Henderson is still around at that back end. So that's what 6 teams just there that we have addressed that could address it in round 1. So
I think the Raiders are a definite.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Broncos are a definite. And then it's just about like you say, whether one of them at the end or whether the Bears do go for it.
I think Steelers are a one to keep an eye on. They've brought in a lot of people on the top 30 visits in the running back position, haven't they? Which indicates they're going early with a running back, whether that's round 3, because they don't have a round 2 pick. I don't know. I think if you bring in that many in, it indicates that you are in the market possibly in the first round.
They've brought a lot in. A lot of the guys, though, I would assume to be more 3rd round picks than first. That's the only thing with that. So I do think, I think you're right. I think they definitely will take one, but I think you're probably looking more 3rd than first. But yeah, I think that, they will be a team that will be interesting to see who they go for, because I think they will take a running back. So yeah, there's plenty there. So I think over 2.5 at 8-5 is quite a nice price for them.
Where we go next?
To be a first round pick, I think it is. So there's a few guys I've tried to sort of like
I don't like
avoid
boosted odds from 8-1 to 9-1 on Tyler Shough. That doesn't seem that great.
Is it not exciting you, that one? No, okay. I've obviously tried. So we try and make sure that we don't go for the odds on bets here. Although one that does seem to have gained a lot of sort of buzz, that's definitely going to have, and he's an odds-on shot. So I'm not recommending it really. Maxwell Harrison seems to be a real popular one for. They reckon he's going to go in the first round at 10-27. So I think that's probably likely to happen. But there are some guys here that I quite like the look of. As I said, Jalen Milrow, I think that there is a chance that Milrow, someone comes in and picks him up at the back of the first, trades in at 13 to 10, I think is a decent price for him and one worth looking at. Certainly the Browns are a team that could do it. And also the Giants. I'd love to see him at the Giants. I think that would be great for the one quarterback that I think would be good at the Giants would be him, because I think he can sit behind Russ and he can learn from him, and they both kind of have that sort of like, use their legs type of game plan.
You could also use him as well. Like the big skill with Milrow is how good he is with his legs.
Yeah.
So, Russell Wilson's slowing down now. You could leave him in there for a lot of the passing plays and then bring Milrow in gently into some plays and use him like the Steelers use Fields a little bit during the season and go, do you know what, go out there and trick him that you might just run the ball, because he's insane at running the ball.
Yeah, I think he's definitely one to look for. And I think he's a funny one. I genuinely think he could go first round, and then I look at it and think he could drop and he could be the top of the third for you. It's really weird where it could happen. But yeah, I think he's one that could get in. We've seen Mason Taylor like mocked a lot, haven't we, to go to the Eagles at the end and to be a first round pick. He's even money, so he's one that could be worth having a look at. For me, Trey Amos, I've been saying Trey Amos for ages. I think there's a few teams at the back of the first that are corner needy and will probably end up going for a corner. The Bills make a lot of sense. Maybe even the Ravens are a team that could go corner. So at 7 to 4, he's a very sort of like, jack of all trades, master of none, but I think he'll do very, very well in the NFL. And so at 7 to 4, I think he's a good price to go for. Obviously, it'd be rude if we didn't mention a Ohio State player just for you. So Donovan Jackson at 21 to 10. Now, the reason behind this one is just purely that I think a lot of O-line guys could go early. And if that's the case, then you're going to need to find someone. The Chiefs, you could argue, need an O-line guy. So at 21 to 10, you got yourself a very solid sort of O-line player here. And then finally, at bigger odds, and I mean, this really is a little bit of a pun. I would be a little bit surprised if it happened, but at the same time, he does have a lot of attributes as in a weak wide receiver class where there are teams that need wide receivers. Jaden Higgins is 7 to 1, and he kind of like, if you can't get Tetairoa McMillan, feels like Jaden Higgins is the next best thing in this draft. And so at 7 to 1, if you want a big-bodied wide receiver, then I think he's worth a punt here.
Yeah, all the other guys are sort of slightly shorter, speedier guys, aren't they? So yeah, Higgins is probably the next best one if you want an X receiver on the outside. Do you like the odds on Azariah Thomas at 6 to 1? A lot of people have had him mocked in the first round, just on the fact that the media seem to be high on him.
Yeah, I did look at him. I think he's probably going to fall. He didn't have a particularly great combine, did he? And I think that might just be enough to sort of push him down, maybe turn him into a second round pick rather than a pro
day didn't show him in a great light either. I think he's low 40 in his pro day. There's two positions for me, Adam, that I think there might be a bit of a run on in the middle. And we've said on this position that after sort of like the first 2 or 3, everybody after that's a bit of a punt. So, that's when you get those people at the back end of the first, and you get we had McDonald going at the back of the first previous years. We had Robinson, I think, go to the Cardinals as well. And we didn't have those names. So for me, that's O-line, like you said, and edge rusher for me are two positions that I think that they're the two that might sneak into the bottom of the first round, and it could be anybody after that. So I think Nick Scornton for me is first round talent. I think he's being knocked down slightly because of we're loving the traits of the other people, but I love the tape from Purdue. And if people go back to that, then 2 to 1 on him. And then Aronte Ursary as well at 6-1 to me. I think he's good enough to have a back end first on him if people wanted to take him as well. That wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, Ursary is another one that stands out at 6-1. Like you say, it could be a case of they need to find guys, and so therefore, if a lot of them go early, then Ursary is a good shout at 6-1. Not so. I mean, I get the logic of scouting and stuff like that. I don't really have him as a first round player, and I'm not sure whether they would go for him. There, I think he's probably more likely second, but I wouldn't, like you say, it wouldn't shock me if they did go for him, to be honest, because like you say, edge rushers are an important position, and you said, didn't you? What was it? Was it Chop Robinson, wasn't it? Was the one who went to the Cardinals? Yeah. So it's like there are it does make sense, and so I think that them two are quite logical to go for.
It was Darius Robinson, wasn't it? The one that went.
Oh well, we called him
Robinson.
Chop,
went to the Miami Dolphins, didn't he?
Oh, did he? Okay, I could. They're all Robinsons.
Come on. Yeah, it's a common name. We just throw it out there.
I'm used to some Ezerakis now, not blooming Robinson. Right, after this, so next one, kind of like slightly bigger lot, the exact position of first team picks. I think this is probably the market really where you can find yourself a few decent prices and a few different ones to go for. So right, first of all, right at the top, Arizona Cardinals. I have been saying all the way through this draft process, corner. Their corner room just isn't very strong, and it feels like that it's where they're most likely to go. So to me, at 19-5, I think that's a decent spot for them. Chances are Will Johnson's gone, but at 16, if they pick at 16, there's Jahdae Barron's going to be there. And it feels like such an obvious move. And maybe I've talked myself into it too much, but at 19-5, it just feels like the one to go for. After that, obviously, as we've already spoken about, the Chicago Bears, 9-4. I think the 9-4 on the Chicago Bears for running back is a decent price. I just personally, as we've spoken about, if you're going to do it, I would rather everyone went and did a little bit on Hampton and Henderson rather than that. But I wouldn't put you off the 9-4 for the Bears. For the Dallas Cowboys, again, now it does feel like wide receiver's the obvious, doesn't it? It really does. But I have said multiple times, and actually, I had a look on Sky Bet and Paddy Power. Dallas, the Bet365 is where you want to go here for this one. O-line 9-2 is the biggest price. I just feel like they might go O-line. Like I've been saying it all the time. They need a wide receiver and they need a running back.
I can't see it being. There's no way with the fans and Jerry Jones. There's no way it's not.
I just don't think they care.
Oh, he's got to, because if they have
another, he hasn't so far in his previous however many years he's been there. And I mean, I agree with you. I think that wide receiver makes the obvious most sense. You're probably going to have McMillan there, and he's going to be, I think he'll be a great complement to CeeDee Lamb, completely different and exactly what they need. I just don't know if they're going to do it. They do the same thing every year. It's always the O-line. So 9-2, I think, is worth a look at. Next one, Denver Broncos, just one below, just purely because I think this is a slam dunk, really. 11-10 on a running back. I can't see them going anywhere else. I know they've got wide receiver issues as well, so you could argue that they want to go for a wide receiver. But I mean, if Hampton or Henderson's there, I just don't see how you don't go for them. So I think that one's quite an easy one. A little bit further down, the LA Chargers one. Now, this is a bit of a different one, this one for the LA Chargers. I think that the top two in the market is definitely what's going to happen here. And actually, I think it's probably going to end up being Colston Loveland or Kenneth Grant, as they're both Michigan guys. But I kind of quite like the price on both of them, to be honest, at 7-5 and 7-2. My concern with the 7-2 of tight end is I just don't know if Colston Loveland's going to be there.
Yeah, he's probably gone, isn't he?
And that's what makes me think that the 7-5 for the defensive lineman, which I kind of think is probably what they're going to do. I just can't see them going wide receiver in the first round. So to me, defensive lineman or edge is kind of what makes sense. They haven't they need to replace Poona Ford. So at 7-5, I think that makes quite a lot of sense. And I could see him going Kenneth Grant. I could see him going Derek Harmon. Any of them sort of guys, I think is a decent one. The LA Rams, the next one down, 5-2 on a cornerback. They need corner. That's to me, that just feels like a really that's a nice one and a nice price of 5-2. I think is a definite. Miami Dolphins, they've lost their left tackle now, and I've completely forgotten his name. Who was the guy who retired?
Armstead,
Terrion Armstead. We've been saying, haven't we, for a lot, safety because of Javon Holland not being there. But I think that now that Armstead has retired and they have no left tackle, I just feel like they don't have a choice. They got to go there.
They need to go everywhere, I think.
They do, but what's the one thing that they desperately need?
They need to protect
protect Tua, and if your left tackle's gone, then you need that. So at 13-10, I think that makes a lot of sense, and that's probably one that they will go for. New Orleans Saints, we've already spoken about this, where cornerbacks 10-1 for me, Will Johnson. So I would probably be more willing to take the risk on the Will Johnson one at 12-1 rather than 10-1 for cornerback, because I don't think they go for any other corners personally. So I would rather go for the 12-1 on that one. The Eagles. The Eagles are an interesting one.
9-1 for tight end.
They are 9-1 for tight end, and obviously Mason Taylor has been mocked to them quite a lot. And there's a lot of chat, isn't there, that they think that that's where they're going to go. And to a certain degree, that does make sense, because when you think about, they brought Dallas Goedert in when Zach Ertz was kind of at the peak of his powers, sort of thing, and it does kind of feel like they're quite set in near enough every other position. So tight end does feel like one that they could go for if there really is a guy that they like. So
lots
at 9-1,
being traded, isn't there? Lots of buzz. I think Giants have actually inquired about him, I believe.
Yeah, a lot of talk about it. So 9-1, I think, is a really good price for tight end. There is one other that I quite like in this one as well, and that's cornerback at 11-2. I think although they've gone and got themselves two really good corners in Cooper DeJean and Quinion Mitchell, they could do with some depth in that position. And it doesn't matter if it's young or not. I just feel like they could do with some depth in there, because James Bradbury is gone. Darius Slay obviously has gone over to the Steelers now. So to me, it feels like corner is the way forward for them. So yeah, 11-2 and 9-1. I think both of them they're decent odds to have a go at there. So for that one, and then finally for me, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think they go quarterback. I think they go defensive lineman, and so at 7-4, it actually was 21-10 yesterday, and it's now gone in again 7-4. I think defensive lineman is what they probably go for. So 7-4, I think, is a nice price. So yeah, they're all my ones for the exact position of first teams. There is a lot in there, but I think there are some really nice ones. I like the Steelers at 7-4 for the D lineman. I like the two Eagles ones a lot. And I really like the Rams to go corner at 5-2. I think that's a really good price for that one. So yeah, they're my kind of standout ones of the lot. But I think that's where a lot of they're the sort of good markets to go for.
Yeah, definitely some real nice ones in there. The odds seem a lot friendlier in that, and
Yeah.
you're not actually picking a specific player. So
Yeah.
quite like that one. Where are we going next?
So literally that once you get past that, the only thing I've got left, and this was just me having a bit of a laugh, exact position of Mr. Irrelevant. Just to finish off the draft. It's a deep running back class. That's all I say. And at 8-1, I think it's worth a punt.
What you got? Running backs. Yes, it's deep on running backs.
It's deep on D line as well.
Yeah, but
so
I think
it could be that as well. But
I think when it comes to Mr. Irrelevant, there's been a fair few players over the course of talking to the NFL community myself that are very high on a lot of running backs that people will openly say to you, I think they might be an undrafted free agent. So they're the type of ones that people are high on them and they expect him not to be drafted, that they could sneak in as Mr. Irrelevant, surely.
yeah.
Outside of that, I can't see it being quarterback. Can you? Can you see someone?
No. Not in this one. I just don't see. I mean, who knows? You never know. I think at the end, I don't know who is the last pick. I'm not sure who actually has got the last pick. But yeah, I mean, for me, I just kind of felt like it's a really deep class. It doesn't matter so much whether they hit or not. Kansas have got the last pick.
Have they?
Yeah. So yeah, I just kind of feel like it's one that you could go for, but I mean, this is just a bit of a punt, and who knows? But yeah, that was the last one that I kind of had.
That's a decent one to bet on as well, because it literally could be anyone.
Yeah,
you may as well have a stab because the odds are great after defensive lineman and edge. The odds are good.
Yeah. I mean, it's like well, if you look at corners 7 and then anything else after that kind of thing, are like really good odds. So yeah, I think it's
in this draft class as well. I think there's a lot of tight ends that could slip down at 20.
Yeah, potentially. It is, maybe they'll draft Travis Kelce's replacement at tight end as Mr. Irrelevant. There you go.
Maybe. So yeah, it's a good market. I like that one. I think I might actually have a stab on someone on that market just for the fun of it, which means I'll have to keep track of the 7th round with an eagle eye, watching it online, going who's pick, who's left. Is there any more? Is that where we're ending? Is that your final thoughts for it?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I was looking at a lot of them. The thing is, I think with the draft is when you start looking at they've got all these markets for like the number 1 running back, number 1 wide receiver, and all that. They're all kind of obvious where they're going to go. And
fantastic, are they?
No, and it just kind of feels like that they're kind of number 1 corner. I wonder who that's going to be. So it's there's not a lot there, so it kind of feels like that's not really worth it. With the number of the pick, again, as we said, you are there is a bit of a concern in whether teams trade, obviously, which changes things. So I would always, to me, I think it's the exact position of the first team pick. That's the market that is the one with the decent prices and just looks a lot better to go for. And yeah, I mean, there was some other stuff in there that obviously I came up with, but it's not. I always find the draft is one of these things. I think the draft is something where you can actually win quite a bit of money on the draft, but you're better off sort of going for small stakes and big prices, and just you might do well out of that. But yeah, I wouldn't be putting loads on a odds-on shot. Let's put it that way.
Now, just before we sign off, Adam, have you got one hot take for us from the draft that you think could happen? It can be as ridiculous as you want. Off the top of your head.
I think I think the Bears are going to take one of Hampton or Henderson.
Yeah, go on, join me in my hot take if they
Yeah,
take
no,
Henderson.
I agree. You brought that up, and I kind of went. I do think that's probably going to happen. Maybe not a massive hot take. I think Golden is going to be the first wide receiver off the board. I think Dallas will take him. They'll get all excited about the speed, and they'll screw it up. I don't know. I don't know what anything else. I don't think there's going to be many trades.
I think there is. I think there'll be loads of trades. I think there'll be players moving. I think you'll see some veteran players get traded, some picks move. I think there's going to be a lot of trading on the actual day. So
Aaron Rodgers will announce that he's going to the Steelers live in Green Bay just to annoy all the Green Bay fans. That's what it'll be.
Maybe, yeah. Well, that's a good one. We'll actually find out what Aaron Rodgers is going to do. But
No,
I will
never
find out
that
on Thursday. Thursdays when it's all happening. I think we'll all be keeping in touch and listening to it together. So be interesting, and hope your teams get the players that you want. But till then, keep with the franchise tag and see you again very soon.